Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Magic Mics, proudly sponsored by Mana Traders, as well as Twitch subs and Patreon supporters just like you. My name is Evan Irwin, and get started each week by saying hello to my two co-hosts, Power Dragon.
What's up, everybody? And I'm finally here on the eve of our trip to MagicCon Chicago.
Very exciting. Ruben Bressler.
Yeah, same. I am leaving in 11 hours. My flight is at 7 in the morning.
Oh,
I
I'm
will
lucky.
not-
I don't have one till around noonish, so I'm all right.
I will not be in Chicago, unfortunately. But that said, if you missed our pre-show, patrons get access to all of that good stuff right after the show. We kick it off with our first pick because it is time for Final Fantasy. Ladies and gentlemen, they finally cracked open the shell and they showed us something of what they've been working on for 5 years.
Yeah.
And they said this as much. I'm not just making that up. They said 4 to 5 years worth of work total. We talked a little bit about this in the pre-show. The world of approvals when it comes to exterior licensees is vast.
Yeah, you probably had a 2-year battle of just getting specifics on what you can and can't do, what images you have access to, how many resources the other company was going to give you for the project. Like, I imagine there was probably 2 teams of lawyers involved. Like, there's probably a lot that had to be negotiated before you even got to start working on a card. So yeah, it doesn't surprise me that it took that long. I've been involved on other projects with the Godzilla license, and it was awful. So I imagine Final Fantasy was probably twice as bad.
Well, the other interesting facet of trying to make a Universes Beyond project for an active IP is trying to develop products that might still be in the pipeline. For example, Final Fantasy VII Remake Trilogy is like concurrent to this Magic Set's development. So how are you going to design cards for something that isn't fully made yet? And how do you time their releases and all that kind of stuff? There's so many other complications that happen when it comes to trying to pair up IPs.
Yeah, I mean, and they talked about in Final Fantasy 16, they had to, make Final Fantasy 16 cards because that came out while they were still working on this. Final Fantasy 7, they had to go, look, we're just talking about the first game, not the remake stuff. Like, the art will look kind of like the remake stuff because it's the Magic style and so on. But that's cool. Either way, I just know that, from talking to some Wizards peeps that I know that this was the most not close, difficult Universes Beyond project they've done so far. I don't doubt it, but it looks great. Check out here, like, it's seriously like of all the cards, just like throw up first. Not there's anything wrong with that. Tunberry is here.
Yeah.
Hanging out from like Final Fantasy 3 or something.
Sure.
Or 5 here it says. This card is neat. This is standard legal, by the way. It's 1 black mana for a 2/1 Salamander Horror uncommon. This creature enters tapped with a stun counter on it. Okay, you have to wait a turn for it. During your turn, this creature has first strike and death touch. That is value for 1 mana.
I mean, it's fair. You can't do anything with it for 2 turns, so that's fine. By the time you get it, it's lethal.
Right.
Well, it's a lethal creature.
It is a lethal. It wins combat on your turn.
Yeah.
He's got that little stab going on right there.
Because apparently the lore of this guy is that he'll like sneak up and kill you. And that's like perfect lore for this little character. The other thing that, as we start talking about the specifics, I really appreciate about what they did is that they noted which Final Fantasy each card's character comes from at the bottom of each card. So I think that that's a pretty neat and UI friendly thing to do. Is like, what is this from? Oh, it's from 5. Oh, it's from 12. Oh, it's from 2,
Oh, well, in terms of like segue there for elements and things, we have the set symbols for the products. The Commander Chocobo set symbol is chef's kiss. You can't do it better. High five. The what they call the Through the Ages, a reprint, series of reprints for it inside that world is called Through the Ages. It has the Moogle face for the set icon, and then I'm like, what is happening? In the main set with this jewel thing. Was the jewel really necessary? Do you see? Look at Tomberry again. Look at that symbol. Does it not look like a jumbled mess when you're not like right on top of it?
It kind of looks like a bullet.
Yeah.
I just don't understand it. Like, I get they wanted to put a jewel or whatever, but like, this is tiny space.
It also doesn't look like a Final Fantasy jewel.
I mean, it's a
which
crystal,
is the other
right?
It's a crystal.
And crystals, it's pharmacist, judge, and others think.
I mean, it could have just been a
wrong.
crystal. It doesn't really need the FF on it, to be honest.
Yeah, it could have just been a bigger crystal, right?
Yeah, or
I don't
another
know.
cute animal. I liked the cactus that I'm sure we'll talk about, or another different chocobo, or whatever this cute little guy with the ball on his head is.
Well, I also get they wanted something that would be like universal for every single Final Fantasy thing, right?
Yeah.
But again, just make it the FF, whatever. Anyway, that's
Or
another thing
just
too,
make it the FF is really.
I just realized is like with a lot of other Universes Beyond properties, even stuff they put in sets, like you've been dealing with people in the US or American office, and I believe everything for Square Enix is actually still based out of Japan.
Yeah.
So that's going to be part of the other issue when you're trying to do a project like this.
Oh yeah, 100%. They're like, the crystal has to be there, and we're like, all right, the crystal has to be there.
Yeah.
They noted all the products that they're bringing out for the expansion here, and they're going to have commander decks, which is great, and they're going to have collector commander decks. And I was looking back through. Correct me if I'm wrong. The only products that have had collector commander decks beyond like Secret Lair stuff is the Warhammer ones and Modern Horizons 3. Is that correct?
Correct.
So, because these were basically well worth the investment from all I can tell. I think the Warhammer was a little bit better than Modern Horizons, but either way, they're going to have collector versions with the surge foils and stuff in them instead of the regular versions. And it's interesting to me that they made the black, like sort of what I would call the sleek, nice ones, the regular versions, and the white ones, the collectors, but okay.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's fitting the magic rarity symbol more.
Sort of. I would have went the other way though, because the regular products are all base white.
Oh,
and I think it would have been nice to have that be like, hey, all the regular stuff is in one motif, and then the special stuff comes in the black box.
Sure.
Plus, there's always like the black box, the black card, the whatever that like denotes having something special.
Right.
It would have made more sense for me.
And so, all right, so now they're talking a bit about sort of what's sort of big and new and different here. And we now have Saga creatures. This, like, if you've played Final Fantasy and you know what summons are, this is so cool. It's beautiful. The Summon Shiva card is 2 blue, 3 generic mana for an uncommon enchantment creature Saga elemental. And note, they have these all the way up and down the chain. They're going to have common ones all the way up to mythic ones. Really awesome. Sure. They act just like Sagas, except now this is a 4/5. So on one of the 3 turns it's alive, you can attack on the second one. But on turns 1 and turn 2, you have a lower counter when it shows up. You sacrifice that for 3. You tap target creature an opponent controls. You put a stun counter on it. You do that twice. Then for the third one, you draw a card for each tap creature your opponents control. So during that second turn, you can smash in with a 4/5 if you want. Now, if they kill it, you're not going to get that third trigger of the Saga. But also, as the person across the side of the table, I don't know if I want to use a removal spell because this thing's going to die next turn. But it's also going to get that effect, right? So, like, there's a really wonderful, like, tension between how these things work. And just adding power and toughness to Sagas just gives them so much more dynamicism, I guess is the way to put it. And the way it works with summons is beautiful.
Yeah, I love the idea of summons. I think that we should have summons in the next D&D set for summon demon and conjure woodland beings and things like that. I think we should have this in all regular Magic sets. I think that this is just a beautiful pairing of card types and abilities that gives you these temporary boosts that allow you to be slightly more powerful. So like, you can make like a pretty powerful red 1-drop with haste that dies in 3 turns, if it's a summon. So I love this concept.
What's funny is it feels like a design that they already had, but you just didn't have anything to do with it or where to put it.
Right.
Sure. And then Final Fantasy comes along and they're like, man, how do we have, for all those spells you make where you summon a character, how do we deal with that? It's like, oh, wait, we have a thing.
Right.
Yeah.
As the
Maverick noted, how long have we been without summon on creatures? Since like 7th edition or something?
Yeah,
everything old is new again.
I love it. Now, no, this is the first Saga to ever have flavor text on it, but it's also the perfect spot that you would put something like Death Touch or First Strike, Line, really, French vanilla keywords and so on.
Right. This does not count as a vanilla creature, I assume.
No.
Even though it has nothing in its text box.
Exactly. But I think this is cool. Again, so excited to see how far they go with the mythic ones. That's going to be super rad. Moving on here, double-faced cards are a huge thing, and I absolutely agree. If there is nothing more Final Fantasy than, oh my god, it came back bigger and stronger and scarier. And that's exactly what this card is sort of showing you. So Emmett Selch rather, Unsundered, is a black, blue, and a generic mana. 3 mana for a 2/4 mythic legendary elder wizard with vigilance. So 2/4 vigilance for 3 mana. Okay. When it enters or attacks, draw a card, discard. All right, I loot, you loot. At the beginning of your upkeep, if there are 14, and all he happens to be from Final Fantasy 14,
I assume.
if there are 14 or more cards in your graveyard, you may transform him into Hades, Sorcerer of Eld, as a 6/6 vigilance that has Yawgmoth's Will on it.
Mm-hmm.
During your turn, you may play cards from your graveyard. If a card or token will be put into your graveyard from anywhere, exile instead. That doesn't go away. That's not until end of turn. That's not when it enters or attacks or whatever. That's just, you just have it. The game is ending soon thereafter. This card is really dope.
Yeah, I don't know how difficult it's going to be to flip some of these, but man, if you do, the backsides are strong as hell.
Yeah, this card is bananas. I assume
it's price
like
move.
It's a 3 mana 2/4, which is a stat line that I love. I love Dryad of Elysian Grove stat line. It's one of my favorites. It survives a bolt. It blocks a 2/2 early. I love it. No notes. The fact that it flips, I mean, relatively easily. You can build your deck if you want to, but also you can just play Magic to get this to flip into a late game, get everything in your graveyard back. Absolutely unbelievable.
Yeah, and it flips at the beginning of your upkeep for no mana. It doesn't say pay some mana, so you've locked down some of your mana that you can't use for the rest of your turn or whatever. That's dope. And as I'm told by the chat, I think it's Emmett Selk, and I could definitely be wrong about pronouncing things. That's well known. They bring it here to the first Final Fantasy. If y'all remember, when the rocks were soft, Garland, Knight of Cornelia, showed up, and as I recall, and I think it's what the story of the card is, you meet him early and you whip him. Like, he's pretty easy to kill. And then later he comes back and he's big and scurry. Right. So the front side is what I would describe as sort of standard stats for a red and black card these days. Red and black mana for a 3/2 uncommon legendary human knight. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, you surveil 1. Look at the top. You may put it in your graveyard. For 2 red, 2 black, 3 generic mana. So for 7 mana, if it's in your graveyard, as a sorcery, you can return it to the battlefield as a 5/5 flyer that when it dies, you put it on the bottom of its owner's library. So good, solid value.
Yeah, that's just a good, solid creature. 2 mana 3/2 that gives you additional abilities is awesome, and you don't mind trading it. And then a 7 mana 5/5 that goes back to your deck is also fine. It also has an ability. This card has an ability even if you don't cast it, even if you just put it into your graveyard, perhaps using Emmett Selk. So, I think it's just a good, solid card.
Yeah, this is one I think, at least from what we've seen so far, probably gets played the most of what we've had revealed, because it's just like, if you're playing just an aggro-y deck, it goes in. It's a quality creature with upside, and then late game, you just get to do something real big with it.
And I appreciate the fact, this isn't uncommon. That activated ability is not like priced to break anything. You know what I mean? 7 mana is way late game. You would want something like this as uncommon to come back and help. That's really cool. They've got some showcases here. They have the, what do they call it here exactly? I'm trying to figure out what the special name of it was. It's like book something or other.
Oh, I don't know. I never know the names of all the different showcase things.
Either way, this card is neat. Look at this wild Sultai thing. Blue, green, black, 4 generic mana for Sin Spira's Punishment. So 7 mana for a 7/7 flyer. When it enters or attacks, exile a permanent card from your graveyard at random, then create a tap token that is a copy of that card. If the exiled card is a land, you do it again. You repeat the process. So you're going to do it until you get every permanent that's a land out, or you get a permanent that's a non-land, and then you got a free copy of it.
Yeah, this one's a weird one. Well, first of all, it's a 7 mana card that has,
crazy text on it.
Yeah. But you can also finagle this. You can also, we can Relic of Progenitus our own graveyard so that it's only 10 lands, and then we get 10 lands when we play this. So that's kind of cool.
Sure.
Yeah, this is a fun reanimator target too. Mm-hmm. I could see decks one, especially in standard, if you're just looking for that next big body to play. Like, it's a 7/7 flyer.
Right.
That also gets you realistically immediate value. You're going to copy something.
I don't know what we're copying. If there's a non-land permanent in your graveyard, at least one,
Yeah,
you will
that's what I'm
get.
saying. We're copying something. Like, so that's
Right.
cool.
So like let's build the deck, right? We have two of these in our graveyard. We've got a couple reanimation spells and we've got a couple of lands. If we cast this, we're either getting a land, which lets us repeat the process, we're getting another Spira's Punishment, which lets us repeat the process, or we're getting a reanimation spell, which gets us another copy, which also lets us repeat the process. We're getting our entire graveyard. If we're just milling 10 cards like normal.
And it's easy to get this in the yard, right?
Yeah.
Like you've got the red enchantment, well, a bunch of them that comes into play, discard, draw,
Sure.
right? You've got
Satyr Wayfinder style effects.
Yeah, Bitter Triumph that you get to kill something, discard a card. Like there's a bunch of ways you can manipulate this.
There's the new Mana Dork that mills a card that is that might be able to help here because it's green.
Yep.
So yeah.
All right, so they talked again here about the borderless character cards. Did you notice on the right side of the screen, if you're watching the video, something unique about the character cards on the right side here for Cecil Dark Knight and Cecil Redeemed Paladin? This card is dope, and this card is standard legal. For 1 black mana, it is a 2/3 Death Touch. Let's just hold for a second. 1 black mana for a 2/3 Death Touch. It is a legendary human knight. It has darkness. This is a keyword. Whenever Cecil deals damage, you lose that much life. If your life total is less than or equal to half your starting life total, you untap Cecil and transform it from a 2/3 Death Toucher into a 4/4 life linker, but we're not done. When it attacks, other attacking creatures gain indestructible until end of turn. This is a 4/4 lifelinker that helps all your other things be indestructible for 1 mana. I get it's Jackal pupping you or whatever. Like, okay.
Yeah, but
and
who
if you
cares?
look on this on the second side here, I absolutely love having the Roman numerals of the games they're in behind them. You can see the tall I and V behind them.
Nice. Oh, that's cool. I didn't see that.
Exactly.
Oh, I love that idea.
Yeah.
It's very cool. Yeah, this card's insane. Absolutely bananas. Like we already have the last ride in standard, and that works with Cecil. It doesn't work so well with other Cecil, but it works with frontside Cecil. And we can mitigate our life loss and life gain. And there's a lot of like Zora line kind of things that we can do with life loss and life gain. So on top of all that, we can ignore the ability word darkness and we can ignore the backside. It's a 2/3 Death Touch. Like I don't care what else is on the card. This thing could deal me twice as much damage and I might still play it.
Like the upside is so high.
Yeah. It's crazy. And it stands in front of a Goblin Guide. It survives a Road Rage. Like it's great.
The borderless woodblock cards are here. This is the Moogles, y'all. From Final Fantasy IX. I believe these were merchants, as I recall.
Yes.
Stillskin Moogle Merchant, is there in the name, is a 1 white mana 1/2 with lifelink. It's a rare legendary Moogle. And for 2 generic mana, tap : target opponent gains control of another targeted permanent you control. If they do, you draw a card. So, yeah. If something they don't like, and donate it.
So is Demonic Pact in standard, or is there any super bad?
I think it's Foundations, isn't it?
Yep.
Yeah. So this is the best Bizarre Trader that we've ever seen. This is like the best harmless offering effect. It's 1 mana. It has 2 toughness. It also has lifelink. You don't even have to use its ability. It's just a 1 mana 1/2 lifelinker. But if you want to, it not only gives something dangerous potentially to your opponent, or at least useless to your opponent, it then draws you a card. Like giving stuff to your opponent used to be very tricky and very expensive.
Yeah.
This is the best version of this effect we've ever seen.
I will say something, and this is something we've had to address because of like Warhammer and some of these other sets, is when we start talking about the eventual universes within stuff, how do we get to reprint something like this? Because the creature types have to be different.
Yeah, that's true.
Right? Because Moogle is only, to my knowledge, a Final Fantasy thing. I'm assuming possibly trademarked as a Final Fantasy thing. I don't know how you reprint stuff like that,
This probably goes through a creature type update once it leaves standard and it becomes like a cat beast or something.
Sure.
But I agree with you, it's a problem.
I bet that A, yes, it is a problem, and B, I bet Wizards is like, we're just going to kick that can right down the road.
Yeah.
That's for future Wizards to worry about.
Yeah,
those guys can figure it out.
90% of us won't even be working here by then.
It's just something I keep thinking about because I feel like we're probably within a 2-year window away from Universes Masters or whatever you want to call it. Universes within Masters. Like, I don't know. because we're gonna have a lot of cards after this year that are gonna need reprints as the price starts creeping up because those cards aren't in print anywhere anymore. You know?
I mean, we already have like Dalex or whatever, and a starts and whatnot.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying.
Astartes.
Yeah. So like they'll come up with some way to figure it out, obviously. But again, I think 100% someone's like, not for me to solve.
Right.
See in 2030 or whatever. Either way, this card was dope. I love it. And oh my god, this silly card, Jumbo Cactuar.
This is the fakest looking card I've ever seen.
This is the stuff you would see in like the Make a Card forums and be just like, get out of here.
Yep.
For 2 green and 5 generic mana, it is a 1/7 rare plant. And it has the ability of 10,000 needles. When this creature attacks, it gets plus 9,999 /+0. Note that until end of turn. It's the silliest thing ever. Yes, fling effects exist. Yes, this is silly. Yes, give it trample or double strike or whatever. Yeah. Leyline Axe exists. This is silly and wonderful, and I love it. And it 100% dies in Doomblade as it should.
Sure. It's a 7/7. This is Colossification the creature.
Yeah.
What's the biggest number we can put on a Magic card? I think it's hilarious.
We put infinite, right, in the unset. So.
Well, we put infinite in an unset, and this is as close to that as we've ever gotten, for sure.
Yeah, this is a funny thing because watching people freak out about it, I'm kind of like, all right, one, it's 7 mana. So it's like, is this the best thing we could ramp into play or reanimate or whatever and just not kill our opponent with something better? Right? That's the first thing. But I'm looking at it and thinking, like, it's not even that much scarier than the recent Hydra we got, right? Where you can double the counters when lands come into play or whatever. Yeah. Like, that Hydra is likely to kill you before this thing does. And it comes with built-in trample. I'm like, this is fun. It's flavorful. I like it. Yeah. But it's not scary, I would say.
We got a 5 mana 8/8 trampler with an ability to discard it with some mana that does the best discard channeling of +1/+1 counters we've ever seen. Yeah, and nothing's broken, and it's not even that exciting.
I like that this thing can be killed by a SWAT.
That's funny.
Because it has power 2 or less. So that's hilarious. That's really funny that your big giant 7/7 7 mana card is gonna kill you if it attacks, but you can also just push it off to the side.
All right, so now we talk about the Final Fantasy Through the Ages. This is the reprint, sort of the what do they call it again? Not a reprint set, but a reprint. Forgive me.
Oh, like a reskinning?
No.
These are like reskinning of existing cards as new characters.
Right. It was just like the press cards in Outlaws or whatever. Yeah. It's a whole thing. But either way, it's a set of reprints that are in the set.
Bonus sheet.
There you go. Thank you.
There we go.
It's a bonus sheet. Thank you. It's a bonus sheet for the set that features some reprints, of course. However, it does feature like either reimaginings or reprintings of like super cool old art for different cards. There was in like, instruction booklets and rule books and guidebooks and so on. And so the Ancient Copper Dragon is getting a reprint. Do you have any idea how expensive that stupid card is?
I'm gonna guess
all those ancient
50.
dragons are pricey.
$75.
Jesus.
So
yeah, I think the cheapest one of those is like $30-some.
Yeah, it's
like the ancient dragons from that set are all crazy expensive.
Yeah, they're all nuts, and so that's getting reprinted as the Dragon of Mount Gulg, straight from Final Fantasy 1, and Yuffie Kisaragi is being reprinted as Yukiro the Tiger Shadow, which is also really cool. And it's funny because if you were to happen to have played the Final Fantasy trading card game from a few years ago, this is the exact same artwork they used for the Yuffie card, which was kind of
nice.
But now it's with Magic, and I'm okay with that too.
Yeah.
And they're going to make secret layers, as we know, or they're going to milk this thing for all it's worth. But what we've seen so far, I think is absolutely super rad. I'm totally pumped that this is in standard. We don't have to do that weird thing where like you buy your cool Assassin's Creed cards, but no, you can't actually play with them in the standard format. You're like, what? I just bought them. And like, nope. So yeah, there's that. The way they're changing some of the card types up, the sagas are getting really sweet. If this is where we begin, man, Final Fantasy is going to destroy.
I just think with the investment they have to put in, like you need this to be a standard legal set.
Yeah.
Right? Because if your goal is, hey, we're doing this Universe Beyond so we could bring new people in the door to play the game, they need somewhere to play their cards. And it's realistically, before this, your only place to play those was Commander. Outside of 8 or 10 cards in the set that made a splash in Legacy or Modern or something. But you're not going to have somebody take their cloud deck and then go play Legacy or Modern or hell, even Pioneer, honestly, without getting run over. So you need them to be able to play Standard with them. So as much as some people may be bothered that we're adding another couple of Standard sets per year, like it makes sense from a business perspective.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean the dev costs on this have to be just astronomical, quite frankly.
Oh, sure.
And I'm honestly, I'm not sure at this point if the higher prices for the pre-orders are because the cost is higher on the distributor level, or there's just an insane amount of demand. Like everyone and their mom decided to start buying this the instant they started showing any of it, from what I can tell.
I think it's a combination of both. If I were guessing, you're probably going to see average booster packs, technically MSRP, for like $1 more than these would be. So you're probably looking at like a $6 booster pack, maybe even as much as $6.49. But I mean, you saw how fast those things sold out. Like we knew these were going to be this hot. So it's likely more a demand issue than a cost issue.
The big thing for me about the set overall that I'm really excited by is how fun and exciting it must be for fans of these properties that they get to partner with as a part of Universes Beyond. Now they get to put them into Standard. And it's one thing when you're making Magic cards for supplementary products or something that maybe will show up in Legacy sometimes, or older formats or casual formats. It's quite another when it's going to be put on Magic Arena, when it's going to be the featured draft format for 3 months, and it's going to be at the Pro Tour. It's quite a different thing when it's that level and that scale. And if you're someone inside of Wizards of the Coast who grew up playing Final Fantasy, this has to be just the most exciting thing ever.
Well, yeah, I was also thinking about this. Like, imagine being on the R&D team, and especially for this project, right? You've put no less than 3 years worth of work into this or whatever, and you never see the cards you worked on played with.
Yeah.
Right? Because that's basically what happened with Lord of the Rings. All those things with like all the cute food stuff with the hobbits and whatever, like unless you saw it in somebody's commander deck, it never saw the light of day. Right?
Or you play
cool
some
cards
limited,
that they worked on.
Right.
Yeah.
On Arena or whatever, but yeah.
Exactly. So it's like now you get to see these in the world, and that actually further helps the game, right? Those, like you're saying, they're going to be on the Pro Tour. People are going to be playing with them on their Arena daily videos and stuff or whatever. That's going to attract more people. It's just, I mean, as much as people hate it, like I said, capitalism's going to capitalism, and this is the right move for that.
And I agree. Some of the folks in the chat are talking about how like this is really important to Japan. Japan is a giant trading card game market, and feel free to correct me if I'm wrong. I don't know if Magic rather has ever actually beaten Duel Masters in Japan. I'm not sure.
I think it's been, if it hasn't been more than a couple of consecutive months. It's not a lot.
Right. A very thin amount. And have they ever gotten bigger than like Pokemon? I don't know. Probably not. I'm not sure. But that's such a giant market. And you've seen them over the years do very special things for the Japanese market because that market crushes and they sell bukus. And so this is also primed to just destroy in Japan.
Oh, I've told people I would not be surprised if they sell as much of this in Japan as they do in the States.
Oh, yeah. It would be. I would not be surprised at all. And that's another reason, like I love that they took their time, even if Square Enix probably made them, they definitely took their time and thought about every aspect of these cards and hows and whys. And I think we're seeing that come through on.
But you know what?
So far.
When we go back and look at all the different Universes Beyond stuff, they've pretty much hit the mark every time, right? They got it right with Warhammer. They got it right with Doctor Who. They got it right with Fallout. I was like, at this point, we need to just give R&D credit and not even doubt them at this point till you trip and fumble.
I think the only thing that I think they did wrong, it wasn't a design at all. It was how they included the cards. The Jurassic Park cards were just kind of randomly dispersed in the set boosters or whatever, and so were the Transformer cards. And it was like, dude, that's a terrible way.
Somebody's trying to say, except for Assassin's Creed, I think the flavor on all the Assassin's Creed stuff was good. The packaging to buy it was bad.
Right.
Like how it was distributed.
But it sold
the product itself was okay as far as the cards go.
It didn't die like, the March of the Machines Aftermath. Yeah, Aftermath was a disaster. That one wasn't quite as bad. I do wish they had put Assassin's Creed on Arena. That would have been fun to have, if nothing else. But they didn't, and that sucks. And I'm glad they went the extra mile here. And from what I can tell, I'm guessing they didn't say it, but I'm guessing they're going to try to get every Universes Beyond, here in Arena moving forward, particularly if it's standard, of course. So yeah, that's going to be dope. I love that. All right, let's move on to the first pick here into Gather the Townsfolk, thanks to our sponsor, Mana Traders, the best tool to enhance your Magic Online experience. Use the promo code MagicMikes_08V, that's 08 Victor, for 10% off your next subscription with Mana Traders, as we get here to talk all about the fundraiser for Trans Lifeline. Tulare Community Colleges have been doing this for many years now, and they've been upping it every year. And this year they raised $564,000 for the Trans Lifeline group, and I think that is just amazing.
Are we like PG-13 and we get one F-bomb to blow up?
So traditionally, this is a great question, and I'm surprised it took us this long to get here. Traditionally, our joke has been we get one a year.
One a year.
Okay, I'll save it. But
okay.
These people, I don't know if y'all saw, but today on social media, Alias V had posted how her and Olivia had gotten, we'll call it some angry grams from a significant number of people that they sent to their sponsors because they were supporting the Trans Lifeline fundraiser, blah, blah, whatever. Now, to those people, I want to say, one, get effed. Two, if you followed those women for any significant amount of time, they have not been quiet at all about any of the stuff they support. This is not new, right? So why are you even following their content in the first place?
Right.
Their sponsors obviously don't care. They know who they are. This is not news. But worse, as far as I could tell, and of everybody chiming in, none of the dudes who were also supporting this got any of these messages.
Yeah.
Of course.
So all of y'all that sent those, y'all could get effed. I don't care.
It'd be a shame.
There is a, I mean, we can do an entire podcast on how the internet hate machine targets people to try to get them specifically canceled.
Sure. I've had it come my way a couple times.
Yep. I have fortunately only had it come my way once, but that's because I look the way I do. And when you're a public figure on the internet who doesn't fit the motif of everyone's vision of what should be on the internet, you sometimes will not only get hate to your inbox, but then tried to get canceled by your pocketbook, right? They're trying to go after your sponsors. Again, though, you're 100% right. Who do these guys think they're targeting? Who do these, they didn't do any research. Of course their sponsors know what this is about. Who makes sleeves and sells magic products? Trans people.
Yeah.
What are we doing? So, it is sad and upsetting. And fortunately, nothing came of it other than upsetness from it existing.
And trans rights are human rights.
Be mad that they raised $500 million or whatever it was.
$500,000. $500,000.
$500,000.
Yeah. Millions over the years. It's been amazing, which is great. So, and if you can't handle trans rights or human rights, exit doors on your left, Broham.
Right. It is important now more than ever, and we say that every year, unfortunately, to support these causes because it is a very vulnerable.
Not even to get political for a second, but if you do feel that way, honestly ask yourself what problem you're solving if that issue, and I'm putting it in quotes here, went away.
If you're
still going to be angry, your life's still going to suck, your bosses aren't paying you anymore, your rent's still going up, being mad at those people are not solving any of your problems.
It's a pacifier. Yeah. Again, I could go on a whole nother rant about this.
I feel you.
We won't get started on distractionary tactics.
I feel you.
It's the rich versus the poor and so on.
Yep.
All right. So let's move on here to something interesting. I want to hear from Power Dragon the most on this one because Rachel Weeks, who's been in the community for a very long time, I think they work with Tulare Community College and or the Command Zone. I can't remember exactly which. Yeah. But either way, she's been in the community for a long time. And they said the bracket image leaves out a lot of nuance. And so they said, what about this as a way to discuss the commander brackets in new and different ways? And I was like, okay, all right. It kind of writes out a little bit more of what these brackets could mean in a sort of philosophical way, because Lord knows you can still grief as a level 1 deck all you want. But Power Dragon, how did you feel about them kind of expanding what was put out there?
Well, I was one of the people who agreed and gave a thumbs up to this before it went public, so I'm in
Nice.
favor of it. Like, because honestly, one of my big problems, even when we talked through this process initially, was that gamers are going to game, right? There's always going to be somebody
Right.
who's going to be trying to use whatever rules are available as their shield to be a jerk. Like,
Right.
if you've ever done anything at the retail level on a weekly basis, you probably see it in damn near every game you're running events for or whatever. So the more you can detail, the better. So if somebody does show up with a griefer deck at a bracket 1 or 2 game, everybody else can be like, dude, look, obviously that's not what this is for. Right? Like, come on, let's do ourselves some favors. There's no need to bring that to the table. Whereas when you leave it kind of open-ended, it was like, well, I'm not playing any of the game breaker cards, so you can't be mad. You know,
Right.
this at least kind of level sets it a little bit, and I'm more in favor of this.
And Rachel is in the committee. Thank you, Pharmacist Judge, for pointing that out.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So I have a follow-up question, which is this weekend, MagicCon Chicago is going to be the first time really that these rules will be put into effect in a large public setting.
Correct.
Not that you are going to be on the clock, but what is the committee or the what are the powers that be doing at the event to try to take notes or
well,
see?
we kind of will be on the clock of sorts.
Oh, okay.
One of the things is my understanding is we did get designated area, so if people want to just play bracket games only. So we don't have to like chase people down and find tables and ask people,
Are
whatever.
you using brackets, using brackets, using brackets?
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
It saves everybody a bunch of time and headaches. So you'll still be able to play anything you want in the commander area. We'll just have a few tables set aside for that. We're also going to be doing some questionnaires. I believe Gavin was able to get something together that they'll be able to fill out. So when you're done playing, just check these boxes or whatever. So there's some data points on how people feel about it. Several of us are going to be taking notes. We'll be observing things from playing with people in the bracket games. So by the time we get back, we should have, hell, who knows, probably pages and pages of information that we can go through over the next couple of weeks.
I have a new piece of merch that whoever's watching, or Evan or Power Dragon, whoever wants to buy this,
Sure.
This is my new piece of merch. There was a guy named Zach, I think it was Zach Efland, used to wear a hat when he went to PTQs that said "looking for 3v3 money drafts." Similarly, we start selling a line of baseball caps that are open bracket, a number, and bracket. That's it. That is the only thing that's on the hat.
If you don't know, you don't know. If you know, you know.
Bracket 4.
Well, you can at least put
bracket.
LFG bracket.
Yeah. LFG bracket.
LFG2
yeah.
or LFG3.
There you
go.
Yeah. LFG2, LFG3.
Yeah, that's funny.
Baseball
we probably
caps.
could do that. Yeah.
that would be exciting. But yeah, so that's great. I just, anything that can kind of help further refine it. You're dealing with a world of ultimately casual play, but you also kind of want to, provide an optimal experience. And that seems to be at least what I've noticed in the past 10, 15 years of Magic design and play is that, there's going to be games where you have non-games. And I feel like Wizards has done their best to have that not happen. There's not like garbage draft cards anymore. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you don't sprung out with bad cards, or you don't know what to include.
2 things to point out is one, there's been some confusion that the brackets were to make it to where good decks can play with, bad decks, and where that's not really what the goal is.
That makes sense.
The real goal is really the second point of just trying to help people find the gaming experience they're looking for.
Right.
Whether that's for length of game, for style of play, for competitiveness, whatever it is, so that when you leave the table, win or lose, you felt like you had a better play experience. Like, good players are still going to be good, bad players are still going to be bad, deck qualities are still going to be different. Like, no way we will ever be able to regulate or change that. Like, that's just the nature of Magic being Magic when you've got 30,000 cards to work with.
Right.
But if we can increase the likelihood that when you walk into your local game store, to a convention in this case or whatever, and you can sit down and have more positive experiences getting what you want out of the game, great. That's all we really want out of it.
Yeah, I mean, I also akin it to like the hand smoothing on Arena. You know, like
Yeah.
it looks at 3 hands. It gives you the best one of those. It doesn't do any smoothing beyond that, but it tries to help you get at least started on a foot that doesn't have you like, well, I got no lands, got a mulligan. I got no lands again. You know what I'm saying? Like it doesn't sort of put you in a position where you're not going to be able to do anything. Best of 3 is different. I think it takes longer and gives you more options and whatnot. And both of you are at the same disadvantage. But like when it comes to like, I want a best of 1 game, I want to be there for probably 5 to 10 minutes. I think it helps you do that. And I think Wizards has really focused on that over time. All right, let's move on here. Some really sad news in the community. Unfortunately, Kai Budde will not be at Pro Tour Chicago. He had to fly back. He wasn't feeling well. And knowing that he's been having some health issues recently, this is more distressing, I think, than it would be normally. You know what I'm saying? Like,
sure.
Kai Budde couldn't make it. Oh, man, that sucks. But Kai Budde couldn't make it. And you're like, damn, really? Like,
yeah.
You sure? Because, like, I would love to see him. It'd be great.
Yeah.
So,
you know, it's just one of those things that when you have the condition he's got, sadly, like, every incident becomes a concern.
Yes.
You know, anybody who's had a relative that's sick with anything, you know, and it may just be like, oh, grandma fell. And you're like, okay, how bad was it? Like, do we have to go to the hospital? Like, you know, other than just like, oh, dude, she was just in the kitchen and slipped. You know, like, but when you know the condition is there, everything kind of inside you goes like, oh, no, was this the time? You know, and I think that's just going to be the thing from here on out, sadly.
Yeah, and he's coming off of a top 8, right?
Yeah.
That's how the well, I mean, I suppose there's a high percentage chance that in the dark he's coming off of a top 8, but I'm pretty sure he top 8 in the most recent. I'm pretty sure he top 8 in the most recent Pro Tour. So obviously we would like for arguably the greatest of all time, certainly the first greatest of all time, to be there playing on the biggest stage. But health comes first, and you know, we wish Kai nothing but the best, and
of course,
hope that he can eat and not be in pain, and watch the Pro Tour from home.
Going into some desperate ravings, we talk about little stuff, little wild and wacky in the community. Now, this is crazy, but GameStop is hosting FNM at various stores.
Okay. Now I haven't been in a GameStop recently, but where? Like, how do they have room to do this?
Right. Clearly, they can make room, right? Like,
okay. 2 things, actually. One, a lot of stores, and actually there's one, I believe, in Redmond. So like, I don't know, like 45 minutes north of me or whatever. But they actually just have a deal with the mall that they're in, and they can just use like the table sitting in front of them.
Oh, sure. I've been to a couple stores like that. Yeah.
So that's totally an option. The other thing is, this actually isn't that weird. I don't know if people remember, but Hastings, before they closed, actually hosted Friday Night Magic at a bunch of their stores. Like, so we've had actual non-regular traditional game stores actually host FNM kind of for the life of FNM, as far as I can remember. There's always been somewhere.
The place that I first started playing Magic was called Darts USA, and it was primarily a darts store.
I remember playing FNM at Books A Million.
Yeah, I played at ABC Books down on Court Street in Athens, Ohio for a couple of FNMs too. So stores that don't necessarily only sell gaming products, that's not obviously a place called GameStop should sell games and run gaming events. I get it. But this is slightly different in that GameStop primarily does video games and is primarily not a game store in that people play the games in it.
Yeah, but GameStop's multiple times over the last like 8 or 10 years has slowly been testing things and trying out different markets, because they dabbled in like board games for a minute. Okay. You know, I think they announced sometime in the last 2 years they started doing graded cards, so they're working with PSA to get stuff graded now.
Right.
So they're branching out because we've all seen, you know, physical media is slowly going away.
Yeah.
And that's been their bread and butter. So unless you're getting vintage stuff, it's hard to move new copies of things, right? A lot of people don't need to go buy a physical copy of Madden because they just download it and save $10 or whatever.
And even if you have a physical copy, sometimes it doesn't matter. The PSN network went down the other day.
Well, yeah,
and single player games all over the world can be played. Don't even get me started. All I'm saying, so I'm trying to think of like GameStop rather has been the stock that has sort of been the meme stock of the last 4-ish, 5-ish years, where you know we're diamond hands to the moon, and the GameStop stock kept rising, even though it made sort of no sense, right? It's like, why are we doing this? It's because apes together strong, you know. Okay, cool. Well, this seems like
apes together strong. Up on the wall.
Oh my God.
Awesome.
That's
to
the
right
apes
of it.
together.
Wow. Dude.
Apes together strong.
That's sick.
Right
So
there.
That is
right.
kind of cool.
I'm just thinking sort of like strategically, obviously they've been trying different stuff. I think they've been moving in a lot more sort of merch and whatnot, promo type material.
Yep.
And, to me, this is like, is this getting them closer to selling singles, which I think would be gigantic. Selling and or buying singles at GameStops. That is gigantic. Or B, is it about getting access to more product? Because I can imagine that they're kind of restrained in sort of the mass market realm of how much they can get of X and Y because they're not in the WPN,
Sure.
which some of these stores would need to run FNM to do so.
Yeah, I don't know about the first part on singles because I think a lot of that has more to do with the employee turnover, why they aren't able to do it.
Now,
and I
Nate
think
just
that's
says
why.
they already sell singles. They might sell graded singles. I don't know. Do they sell
Yeah,
singles?
they do graded. Like, you can bring stuff to them. They will send it off to get graded. And then after they have piles that they bought from you that are graded, sometimes those are available. But I don't know if they have the expertise to just look at cards and tell if it's near mint, played, whatever. Like,
Because
that's not
that's a
specialty.
specific job that people have that I'm sure all three of us have held at one point for a local comic book store, of like bringing in your box, look through it, and like inherently know what to buy, as opposed to a GameStop employee.
Right.
I don't picture them inherently having that knowledge.
Yeah, I don't think that like you're wrong that eventually it could be a thing though.
Yeah,
I just don't know
agreed.
if that's like the immediate plan. I do think you may be onto something about getting access to product promos, all that other stuff that you can't really get plentifully right now if you're not in the WPN. So it probably does lend itself a little bit that way.
Yeah, so we have Mages One on Twitch and Midwest Dragon Brad Ulo on YouTube, who notes that there's a GameStop in Illinois that sells singles and graded. So this isn't wild.
Well, maybe some of them.
I mean, and look, even Amazon technically has sold singles for a very long time, but it's a very low volume. It's kind of awkward to get the product there. I can only imagine how many product issues they have with it. Amazon themselves have never really, what I would describe as, taken on the friendly local game store, and honest to God, you don't want them to.
Right.
But either way, it is certainly interesting, and if they do more of that, then okay. But I can also see them pivoting into more of that because it's profitable to sell Magic singles, and the more you do it, the better it's going to be for you.
Just nerd stuff in general, right? Like being able to sell supplies, being able to sell plushies, t-shirts,
Figures,
whatever.
Yeah,
like their market's just slowly going to have to change. I mean, a bunch of people they're not even buying every game system. They're buying every other one now, right? So, I mean, it's just the nature of the video game market changing, I think, more than anything else. And like I said, this has been basically a 10-year long experiment that they're just trying a whole variety of things if you go back and look through their history of what works and what doesn't.
Because selling video games ain't what it used to be. And between Steam and everybody else, we've grown accustomed to like, in-game purchases, gotcha stuff, and digital downloads kind of only, digital updates only. You buy a physical case only to open it and there's a download code. Right.
Yeah.
Like, come on now. Like, it's a little silly at some point. All right, here. Let's turn the corner here to the finisher. Now, look, Final Fantasy is finally reality, and so is a universe beyond our own coming to standard legality. So tell me, what UBIP are you rooting for to come to Type 2/standard next, Ruben?
Well, I've given this a lot of thought because you need more than just a movie trilogy or a few seasons of a TV show to get a full Magic set. You need like 30 years plus and like a dozen products, which is why I'm looking forward to the original interconnected universe coming to Magic, the Bible. Because the original, you got to admit, the original was epic. Even if I'm not personally a huge fan of the sequel.
Man. Ooh.
Bruh,
I mean,
there's jokes right? I'm not even touching right now.
Exactly.
I'm not.
You gotta get on a plane. I can't afford to get struck by lightning right now, dude.
Yeah, lightning bolts. We definitely get lightning bolts. Smite.
Wrath of God.
Yeah, Wrath of God, for sure.
Oh my God. All
right.
Hey,
we got rid of Crusade, so that's gone.
That's true.
Lord Almighty. Power Dragon.
Well, you know what I'm about. I'm a big fan of the WWE. So if that comes to MTG, I'm set. So the only one stipulation, though, is we got to have the top pro players cutting promos live on coverage, man. Like, you got to get the "you don't see me" from somebody.
I'm gonna go out and crush him. I'm gonna kill him.
I also want a championship belt.
I would love to have a
start with the
championship belt.
Oh my god.
I would love to have one.
That'd be great.
Don't get me started.
Like you get the trophy, but you have to bring the belt back to the show. Like it has to be passed on to the next person every event.
That's right.
All right. Well, look, the brass ring for Wizards of the Coast is, and always has been, Nintendo, Metroid, Mario, Mega Man, and that's just the M's. And speaking of M's, the biggest selling point for me is to get Mike Tyson on a fight card. Because that's going to happen.
Yeah, Savage Punch.
That's
for
reality.
Mike Tyson's Punch Out.
He would. Yep. All right. And that ends another live episode of Magic Mike's. Thanks for joining us here to discuss all things Magic. Thank you, Power Dragon.
Hey, good to be here. And I guess next week, assuming we get to see some stuff in Chicago, we'll be talking about Tarkir.
Heck yeah.
That's right.
Thank you, Ruben.
Thank you. We'll talk. I mean, we're going to be talking a lot next week. I will be on the road. I'll see some of you in Chicago. If any of you are at MagicCon Chicago, let's play some bracketed Commander, LFG. And then if you're at Gamma, the Game Manufacturers Association convention, I will be at that next week as well. So I will see everybody on the road.
Woohoo! That sounds like so much fun. We appreciate you guys. We're moving here to our final slide. I want to thank our sponsor, Mana Traders, my co-host, Power Dragon and Ruben Bressler, viewers like you for watching or listening. Please follow, like, tweet, favorite, share, subscribe, Blue Sky, do everything social that tells people we exist. Catch us on our exclusive member Discord. Subscribe to our Patreon at patreon.com/magicmics. Join us live on Twitch. Join us live on YouTube. Check out our TikTok. Follow us on Blue Sky or join us here next week. Same time, same place for another episode of Magic Mics. Good night, everybody.